Welcome back to the Motor Index, folks. And well, we have got some spicy drama in the NASCAR Cup Series coming out of the Charlotte courtroom this afternoon. I was scrolling on Twitter, and I think I scrolled, and it was a Matt Weaver tweet, and he said something along the lines of "just got out of the courtroom, oh boy," and I was like, "Ruh-roh, let's see what came here." And my God, is this an absolute bombshell of a story that we got? If you've ever, been in a group chat with some of your friends and you see some, people saying some crazy stuff and you just think to yourself, man, thank God this is in a private group chat and this just doesn't get leaked. Well, I kind of feel like both NASCAR and 2311 Racing, Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin, Curtis Polk, all of them, and Steve O'Donnell and all the guys from NASCAR, everybody in this ordeal feels that way right now because, wow, some of these text messages that got put out were nuts. We're going to get on as much of it as we can. I might even be missing some stuff. I wrote down as much as I can. I'm going to try to do my due justice and give everybody a fair shot here because this is a very, very what's the word? Sticky situation. I don't think sticky does it right. I think this is really bad PR for everybody involved. So yeah, let's just get right on into it. So obviously we had the hearing today between NASCAR 2311 and Front Row in Charlotte. And today was the big day. They really unsealed all those text messages and the evidence that was collected during the collection period. And, oh boy. Okay, let's get on into it. So, I'm not going to go into necessarily the chronological order. I'm just going to read what I got here. So, I think the big one we'll start with is Denny Hamlin, the text from Denny Hamlin, where he says his despise for the France family runs deep. Ooh, that's a big statement. And I mean, yeah, I mean, it's no secret how Denny feels about this. He wouldn't be doing all this if he didn't have some deep despise for the way the France family does business. So it's not really surprising to hear him say it. It's more just shocking to pull back that curtain and see what they're saying behind closed doors. It almost feels a little disgusting to me, and I don't. I mean, this is just the nature of the legal system, but it just feels so invasive. Like it feels like I shouldn't be seeing some of this stuff. But when you kind of do business in the way NASCAR did at the end in last summer, and you take the risk like 2311 is, and Front Row taking the risk of suing the sanctioning body. This is what's going to get exposed, and I mean, it's pretty nuts, but let's keep on going. So, Hamlin, deep despise for the France family. Curtis Polk, Jordan's co-owner of 2311, business partner with Michael Jordan. Cup racing is boring as shit, he says, after a cup race. I'm not exactly sure when. Depending on the track, he's probably not wrong. I think cup racing is very exciting for thousands of reasons, but not on every track. So I don't know, but just to hear him, a NASCAR owner, put it in that way, that's harsh. It's really harsh. Yeah. So then let's see what else we've got. Steve Valletta. This was the big one. Steve Valletta saying that. I don't want to get this wrong. Jim France dying is probably the answer. Jim France dying is probably the answer, he says. President of 2311 Racing. Wow. Wow. That in the Hamlin one were the two big ones. And then we're going to get in the MJ stuff. But yeah, that was probably the biggest one of this whole thing that left my jaw on the floor. Like, yikes. That is definitely one you don't want going public. So that was crazy. Let's see what else we got here. Well, let's just get into the MJ stuff. You had Michael Jordan calling Joe Gibbs Racing fuckers and pussies for signing the charter agreement. And then it's so unbelievable just reading these messages off. I can't believe this is what was hitting my timeline today. Um, so yeah, that's what MJ thinks of Joe Gibbs Racing. I'm from what I'm assuming here, maybe there was a thing between 2311 and Gibbs that if the thing went awry, that maybe Gibbs would have been on board with the lawsuit. But when you're a team as big as Gibbs, I struggle to see them really being on board with that. Um, let's see here. Then you had the big thing with, um, you had the thing with Michael Jordan and Curtis Polk admitting that they have made a modest profit running the NASCAR team, which is kind of a big statement to make, considering that almost every team in the sport has said that they don't make a profit racing. So, whether that's true or not, that's something that A, I want to know if that's true or not, and B, what can of worms does that open up if that's true? That's going to be, I don't even know because I'm not a legal expert and I don't know what's going to come next or what, but that could potentially open a can of worms. Um, and NASCAR's response to that was saying that, Polk's crying poverty as he's sitting here with his brand new multi-million dollar race shop. I get it. I get it from NASCAR's perspective. I get it from everybody's perspective. I think both sides have issues here. I don't think anybody's innocent here. And we're going to get to that in the end when I give more of my general thoughts on where this goes, what this means, and the potential impact of this stuff. But I do think there is a little bit of crying of poverty, but at the same time, that's not to excuse any of NASCAR's business practices. Let's keep going. There was the funny exchange between Curtis Polk and Michael Jordan, where Polk said, "This is just a hobby. Them running a race team. Oh, it's just a hobby. We got all this money. We can just throw it at it." Like that. That's a crazy statement to make. And then Michael Jordan kind of replies to that and says, because they were talking about how much money it was going to cost to deal with this, and he's like, "Yep, this is just a hobby, whatever. I can only play so much golf," Michael Jordan says, which is it's just such a funny statement. I mean, anybody who knows Michael Jordan and the guy who is Michael Jordan understands how funny of a statement that is. And then when Polk, like I said, when Polk comes back and it's redacted, but he says the number it's going to cost them. He's like, "I've lost more in the casino," Michael Jordan says. Oh my God. Oh, it's unbelievable. It really is. And then I guess let's get into the O'Donnell stuff where they said, they basically, Steve O'Donnell pretty much admits that the deal that they offered them was terrible and it was not good at all for the teams. And I believe, I don't want to get the quote wrong, but it was something along the lines of that deal was the F the teams deal. So, like we say here, you got them saying that, and then you've got the whole Curtis Polk crying poverty aspect from the NASCAR side. So it is a complete mess. It is a complete mess. And then Michael Jordan, as they walked out of the courtroom, stated that he is willing to fight to the very end on this, and go down in the fire with it if that's what it takes. And he also said he thinks it's for the betterment of the sport. And you could really, that's the one big takeaway I think that I take away from this whole thing, is it just proves how much Michael Jordan loves this sport. And I try to explain that to people who don't watch this sport and say, you guys can sit here and call this sport stupid and whatever, but literally one of the best athletes in history is willing to die on this hill and lose so much money to better this sport because he understands how awesome and incredible this sport is. So when I see people out here just trashing this sport, I just point to Michael Jordan. And this is just so much more evidence of it. I mean, when you see him saying this stuff behind closed doors, you could see Jordan, like, say these texts ended up saying, from Michael Jordan were saying, "Oh, who cares about NASCAR? It's just a trash sport." That's not at all what he's saying. He cares deeply about this sport, and I think it's incredible to see the fact that he is really exactly who we thought he was. Because I already assumed he loved the sport because of everything he said, but then you get to see it behind closed doors, and it's like, wow, okay, it's remarkable. And okay, let's get into my general thoughts on this whole thing. And I've kind of been saying it here as I was saying. I think it would be a horrible look with Michael Jordan showing as much passion for the sport as he is to just go ahead and sell his charters and kick him out of the sport. I think it would just be awful PR for NASCAR. I mean, there's no really other way to put it. And we're gonna get into why I think NASCAR's got some arguments here too. But, you know, say what you want about the comments made about the France family. I think they could be, working to progress this sport into the 21st century a little bit better. I think if they were able to work with these teams a little more and, have some more modern practices instead of operating it like a mafia and operate it more like a league, I think we would see a lot of really good improvements to the sport. And I think that the way that they operated, especially in those final weeks last year, setting that deadline, giving teams an ultimatum, I thought it was pretty dirty. I got to be honest. I really did think it was dirty. And I think, I think it was Richard Childress was saying how he didn't like the deal, but he just shut up and signed it just to keep the peace. And you look, I think Richard's got a point there. I think there is value in maintaining the peace and not, walking the tightrope and potentially, playing Russian roulette here. If you're both sides, this goes for both sides. I think both sides are playing Russian roulette here. And with the things we saw played out in court today, there is no way this is getting settled. No shot this is getting settled. This is going to trial December 1st. That's going to be ugly. That's going to get ugly. And I think, this is a cloud. This is a cloud hanging over the sport. And it has been for over a year now. But this is a dark cloud. I think it really, until we see how this plays out, this is going to be in the back of everybody's minds. But I as much as I've been getting on NASCAR here, let's see this from NASCAR's perspective. Maybe maybe the numbers are nowhere near as good as they like to claim they are, and if that's the case, would it really be a good thing to see this get hashed out in court in front of everybody and then have NASCAR's reputation get tarnished for sponsors, for TV networks, for potential drivers wanting to enter the sport, potential manufacturers wanting to enter the sport? It's such a layered thing. Like, that's where it's like, I kind of get it from NASCAR's perspective. I think there is a lot of value in maintaining the peace. And look, I think if you're Hamlin, I really hope you're thinking about, is this worth blowing it up? And I trust me, I know what his answer is. I don't even have to ask. His answer is yes. But once we get to the end of this thing, are we going to look back on this and say, man, they should not have done this? Or are we going to sit back here and say, wow, they were right. NASCAR was wrong in hiding things, and we need to change things. I don't know if either is either a good option. Option A is NASCAR wins and NASCAR's right, and therefore you're kicking out one of its, most forward-thinking, new age, biggest name owner in the sport in Michael Jordan in 23XI. Like, obviously not within the NASCAR world. He's not a Hendrick. He's not a Penske. He's not a Gibbs. But to the average sports fan, they don't know those people. They know Michael Jordan, though. And when they hear that Michael Jordan's a NASCAR team owner, I think that gives legitimacy to the sport to a lot of other people who don't watch the sport. And say what you want. Say what you want from both people's perspective. I think from NASCAR's perspective, I don't think it does them any good to kick out Michael Jordan from the sport. But then again, I also see it from NASCAR's perspective that If some of these things get blown up and blown into proportion and get put out in the public, it could have dire impacts on numerous factors or numerous aspects of the sport. I'm really worried for how this is going to play out. I've been worried for weeks of how this is going to play out. I think, can NASCAR survive without Jordan? Yes, it can absolutely survive without Jordan. Is it better off for doing so? I don't know. I really don't think so, but I don't know I don't know every little minute aspect that's going on behind closed doors, because like I said, if there are some dire, numbers going on behind closed doors, that might be bad to release too. And I mean, you guys, I didn't even mention this, but the judge said, the judge essentially said neither of you are innocent here. And the judge is seeing the redacted parts. The judge is looking at the redacted stuff. And he's saying, there's no winners here. You guys are both in the mud here. So how this is going to get solved, I don't know. I mean, as much as I would love a settlement, that's done. That is gone. That is way out the window at this point. Where we go here, I don't know. The only thing I got to say is buckle up, because either way this goes, it's going to be crazy. And personally, I really don't want to see Michael Jordan kicked out of the sport. I really don't. And especially with Denny, Denny's almost to the end. And I want to see Denny be a part of this sport, because Denny, even if he's not a driver, he's the big guy who's willing to stand up there and tell everybody that they're wrong, even when the whole world's telling them that they're wrong. So as much as I believe in, keeping the peace, on sort of like the Richard Childress aspect, as much as I believe in keeping the peace, I appreciate the hell out of what Denny Hamlin's doing and being willing to stand up there and stand up for some of these things. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of balls. A ton of them. But I see both sides here, for the good and bad on both sides. And I don't know how this is going to play out, but I really, really hope that it gets solved in a somewhat peaceful manner and we can move on from this, because this is not good. This is bad for the sport, and it's just not helpful at all. So I think that's all I've got for today. I had not really been making videos about this court stuff because it's a little beyond my pay grade, and I think a lot of people are talking about it, but this stuff today was a little too crazy. I had to talk about it. So we'll keep you all updated, and we'll be back here to discuss when we get more developments on this, because believe me, we are far from the ending on this. We have an injunction, I think, ruling next week. And what comes of that, I don't know, but either way, this is going to get even more ugly as this goes on. So stay tuned. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for my coverage heading into Darlington this week. Thank you guys, and God bless.